Good morning and welcome to this story podcast language lesson. My name is Ronan. This is Little Seal English. This video is for upper intermediate levels of English. Upper intermediate. There is a very advanced version also available and the link is down there in the description. But this is more focused. This video is more teaching style. This video is going to do three things. Number one, I'm going to teach you the story of Dubai chocolate. Number two, I'm going to show you how you can turn that story into an English lesson for you to learn by yourself. And number three, I'm then going to go into full English teacher mode and teach you a whole bunch of phrases and idioms from the story. So like I said, my name is Ronan. This is Little Seal English. Join my Telegram channel. Buy me a coffee. Check out my Instagram. All the links are in the description. Here we go. Good morning, my friends. Welcome back. My name is Ronan. This is the Little Seal English podcast, and today we are going to learn about chocolate. We're going to learn about Dubai chocolate. Have you seen Dubai chocolate? Have you heard of Dubai chocolate? Recently, I was in the supermarket, and I was walking down one aisle, and I noticed this green bar on the shelf that I haven't seen before. And I looked at it and I saw the price and it was on sale for $20. Usually it's $40 for a bar of chocolate. $40. But it was on sale for $20. So I did not buy it because I'm not spending $20 on a bar of chocolate. But it got me interested. Why is this bar of chocolate so expensive? Now this bar of chocolate was called Dubai chocolate. There you go. Dubai. What do I know about Dubai? Not a lot. Rich people live there. Influencers live there. It's kind of fake. A lot of people love it, but a lot of people don't know the truth about it. That's for another podcast. But I started to look into Dubai chocolate and I got very, very interested in it. And there's actually a fascinating story behind Dubai chocolate. It's not just a chocolate bar. There's so much more going on. Have you ever heard of Chef Noel Cadiz? Because he's one of the big creators behind Dubai chocolate. Sarah Hamouda is also the innovator, or I'd say innovator, yes. Basically, it wasn't created by one person but many people. And of course, as time goes on, the story might change a little bit. But I've done a bit of research into Dubai chocolate. And I've put together the most relevant points, what I find. And I created a short story about Dubai chocolate. And I'm going to read that story to you today. After the story, we're going to have a look at some of the English that was used in the story. For example, we're going to talk about cravings. We're going to talk about how you can splurge on something. We're going to talk about how the chef was actually raised in the Philippines but has since moved away from there. We're going to talk about how something can go down like a lead balloon or how you might call something quits. And we're going to talk about how the creators of Dubai chocolate were this close to quitting. They were so close to quitting, but they did not quit and now they're probably filthy rich. Because Dubai chocolate has a very interesting story. So, your job is quite simple. Sit back, relax, or not, or listen to this in the gym, I don't know, wherever you are. But this podcast is about Dubai chocolate. It starts with a story, where there's no teaching whatsoever, just a story of Dubai chocolate, and then after the story I go into English teacher mode. And I start talking about some of the phrases in the story and maybe ask you some questions about the story to check if you understand. That's how this podcast will work. Are you ready? Because I am. So without any further ado, let's learn about Dubai chocolate with the story that is called Can't Get Enough of It. The story of Dubai chocolate. Here we go. Can't get enough of it. The story of Dubai chocolate. Dubai chocolate has taken the world by storm. You can purchase a bar of chocolate for $1, or you can splurge and purchase a bar of Dubai chocolate for anywhere between $20 and $200. But where did this incredibly expensive chocolate bar start? Sarah Hamouda and her husband Yezin Alani were brought up in the UK but moved to Dubai in about 2011. In 2021, when Sarah Hamouda was working from home and pregnant, she got cravings. Cravings for a particular flavour. Cravings for kanafe. Kanafe is an Arab dessert that has a very nice crunch to it. She wanted to create a combination of the popular Arab dessert and milk chocolate, and in her kitchen she started to do just that. Somewhere along the line, Sarah wanted to take this dessert to the next level, but unfortunately, because she was an engineer, she lacked the particular skills needed to turn her idea into something more. So what do you do when you have an idea you want to bring to life, but you lack the skills? You get help. Enter Chef Noel Cadiz, a Filipino culinary consultant who also trained as a pastry chef. Chef Noel was raised in Dapong City in Mindanao, the Philippines, a really small town where everybody knows everyone. Coming from a small town, he has always been a big dreamer. His mother owned a restaurant where she cooked and baked, but he gravitated solely towards baking. In his words, baking was his comfort zone. He eventually got to Dubai and went from a demi-chef to a pastry chef in just 1 year. After that, he worked all over the world. He's worked in Beijing, China, the Maldives, Jordan. He worked for Etihad's in-flight chef program. Basically, this guy is really good at what he does. After leaving Etihad, he opened his own consulting company, Nifty Chef. Today, he calls himself a heritage chef, a term he coined himself. Having worked in the Arab world, he learned that their palates are so different and they're using spices that are not common to Filipinos. Their appreciation for chocolate is different. Their appreciation for anything in general is different. For him, it was really important to embrace their heritage when creating products for them. Hence the term heritage chef. In 2021, Sarah Hamouda and Chef Noel worked together, founding the company Fix Dessert Chocolatier, and in 2021 he created the Can't Get Enough of It bar with Sarah Hamouda, who is now the owner of the company. He also created 5 more flavors for Fix Dessert Chocolatier. Remember I said he was a heritage chef? Well, this is where that part fits in. When he created the Can't Get Enough of It bar, he tapped into the Arab palate and dessert. He combined the Arab palate with chocolate to create the first Dubai chocolate bar that we know today. In his words, "I always wanted to touch on heritage to create something unique in the culinary world. That has been my formula." For those who don't know, Kanaf is a traditional Arabic dessert made with pastry dough, sugar, cheese, and pistachios. Chocolate is more of a modern addition in the Arab world, and he took chocolate and incorporated it with kanafe. When combined, it becomes a new treat, a new indulgence. So basically, Kanafe is to Arabs what cheesecake is to the West. It is a very popular dessert. He was able to take that dessert and make something new from it. That's the heritage part. It wasn't long after this when Chef Noel parted ways with Sarah. So, just to recap where we are now. Sarah and her husband moved to Dubai. Sarah got pregnant and had cravings for kanafe. Sarah started experimenting with kanafe and chocolate but couldn't quite get it right. Sarah got help from Chef Noel and together they established Fix Dessert Chocolatier. Chef Noel is a technician and created Can't Get Kanafe of it, as well as several other bars for Fix Dessert Chocolatier. When they launched the first bar, Can't Get Kanafe of it, Chef Noel had already parted ways with them, but he still worked with them, just not as a co-owner. By this time, Sarah's husband had become a partner of the company. Chef Noel says, "I was working as a friend of Sarah's." He went on to say, "I was helping her out because I really wanted her to succeed." Moving on. Let's talk about how Dubai chocolate finally became popular. Creating the chocolate bar was a painstaking process that took Noel and his team about 6 to 8 hours to complete. They did everything. They piped the filling, they waited for it to set, they even packaged the items themselves. In total, they were only able to create 25 bars a day. In 2022, they launched the first version of the chocolate bar on their website, Fix, and the products were delivered through an app called Deliveroo. And it went down like a lead balloon. They were only selling 1 bar per week. You heard that correctly. 1 bar per week. Can you imagine you have been working on a project for over 2 years and you are only selling 1 product per week? What would you do in that situation? "There were so many days we wanted to give up," Mrs. Hamuda said. They were ready to throw in the towel. They were ready to quit. They were ready to call it quits. However, over the next year, they continued to modify the recipe until sometime in 2023, when Sarah claimed they finally nailed the recipe and perfected the chocolate bar. But they were still not selling enough of the chocolate bar. So picture this. It's 2023. You have a product that you know will be successful, but you just can't get it out there. You cannot get enough people to buy it. You cannot get enough eyes on your product. What do? In the past, you'd hire an advertising firm. You'd put up billboards. You'd have ads in newspapers. Today, you just need one thing. An influencer. And in Dubai, influencers are not in short supply. It was on December 18th, 2023 when everything changed for Fix Chocolatier Dessert. After Sarah and her husband reluctantly took a fan's suggestion and sent some chocolate bars to local influencers, Maria Vieira posted an ASMR-style TikTok showing off its snappy shell and cascading pistachio cream, then taking a big, messy bite. This led to a waterfall of orders. Mr. Alani said at least 30,000 orders came pouring in. They were getting so many orders that the delivery app they were using crashed. Sarah said, I remember throwing my phone into the street. There was a wave of orders, a flood of orders they could not keep up. Overnight, they went from 1 order per week to 30,000 orders. All because of one simple 30-second TikTok video. Things are better now. The Fix chocolate team has grown to 50. The bar has gained a global following. Lindt, the Swiss chocolatier, even created a version for a very limited release of 300 bars in December, which sold out in a day. The British delivery app Deliveroo said that last year, the Can't Get Knafa bar was the top item ordered worldwide. After leaving the brand in 2022, Noel rejoined Sarah in 2024, launching 3 limited edition flavors under his own label, Chef Noel Caddies. Of course, with all this success, there have been copycats and knockoffs created. For example, Vanessa Liang of Food Pharma Babe on social media created her very own version of Dubai chocolate called the Taste of Dubai bar, made with a dark chocolate shell, gold chocolate filling with pistachio cream, toasted turmeric taffy and caramelized pistachios. You can purchase this bar of chocolate for only 100 Canadian dollars. How long did they take to sell out? Only about 3 to 5 minutes, she said. On her website, she cheekily says, "Sorry, Dubai, the best Dubai bar is made in Saskatchewan." For those who don't know, Saskatchewan is a province in Canada and could not be more different to Dubai. While Mrs. Hamuda and Mr. Alani are not happy about the knockoffs, Chef Noel says, "For me, the biggest form of flattery is always when you copy someone's work, and I have no problem with that at all because it means you've done something over and above what you have expected. And that when people copy you, that means you've really triggered a lot of their emotions or creativity." In Europe, knockoffs of the Dubai chocolate triggered legal action. In January 2025, a German court in Cologne declared that Aldi had to stop selling its product named Alain Dubai Handmade Chocolate on the grounds that it might mislead consumers because the chocolate was actually produced in Turkey. The case had been brought by the German candy importer Andreas Wilmers, who sells the authentic Dubai chocolate made by Fix Dessert Chocolatier in Dubai. In December, Wilmers filed similar complaints against Lidl and Lindt, and those cases are still ongoing. In the UK, due to the demand for the Lindt variety of chocolate bar, supermarkets had to impose limits of 1 or 2 bars per customer only. Furthermore, according to some news articles, the popularity of Dubai chocolate has increased the shortage of pistachios worldwide since 2024. So if you want pistachios or if you want Dubai chocolate, get them now. But do be careful where you get your Dubai chocolate. It could be from Dubai, it could be from Turkey, or it could be from Saskatchewan, Canada. Okay, so that is the story of Dubai chocolate. That is all the major information that I could get together and create a short story about Dubai chocolate. That's all the major info there is, I believe. Now, if you're learning English, you might come across stories like that a lot, and it can be difficult to remember, right? Well, let's just practice. Who, what, where, when, why. Think about W5 when it comes to a story like this. Who? What people were mentioned in that story? Think back. I mean, obviously, we have Sarah Hamuda, the original idea person, creator of Dubai Chocolate, or the idea of it. She has a husband, Mr. Yalani. And then there was Chef Noel, right? But can you think of any other people that were mentioned in that story? Because if you can, that means you understood a lot more than you think. Now, you might not remember the names of the people, that's okay. But why were they mentioned? Like, do you remember the name of the influencer? Maybe not. But can you remember why the influencer was mentioned? I bet you can. And when we do this, we're thinking about big picture, little picture. So, in terms of the who and the people involved in this story, well, there's Hamuda and her husband. There's Chef Noel. There is the TikTok influencer, Maria Vera. But then, there's also copycats. Foodie Farm Babe from Saskatchewan, Canada, who made her own delicious chocolate bar, which she sold for $100. Crazy. And then there was also some people from Germany who were mentioned as well. So when I mention the who, it's not just the main characters, but it's all about identifying the other people and then why. Why were they mentioned? So if we focus on the why was the chocolate importer mentioned, the one who lives in Germany? And if you can answer the why was he mentioned, that means you understand the story. He was mentioned because he imports the original Dubai chocolate. He imports fixed chocolatier dessert into Germany and sells it. He was mentioned because he is blah, blah, blah. What is he doing these days, for example? We could talk about why in many, many different ways. We could ask, why did Sarah get cravings? Why was Dubai chocolate created? Why did Sarah and Chef Noel work together? Why did Chef Noel have his own company? If you want to think about what did Chef Noel do? So for the why, ask yourself questions about the text. Why did, why was, anything like that. Why were Sarah and her husband this close to quitting? Can you answer that question? Remember I said they were going to call it quits. They were going to throw in the towel. They were going to give up, but they didn't. Why didn't they? What changed? Why did they send a candy bar to influencers? Now, when it comes to the where, think about the places that were mentioned in the story. Obviously, Dubai is a big one, but you can go smaller than that. Let's think about Chef Noel. What do we know about him? Philippines, that's a place. We know that he worked in Beijing in China. We know that he worked in the Maldives. We know that he worked for Etihad and their in-flight service meal for the business class, which is meant to be amazing. But when we think about the where, they are the type of things to really put your mind out there. Saskatchewan is a place. Why was Saskatchewan mentioned? And if you can answer that, you understand the text. And so this method, this very, very simple method, is just called the W5 method. The who, the what, the where, the when, the why. You can make questions, or you can just ask yourself and try to think, why was blah, blah, blah? Why did he do this, or why did she do that? For the what motivated people? What did they create? What is the main idea? What are some supporting points? What happened in Germany, for instance? So that's a very good way for you to try and fully understand something, to fully understand a text in English. You got it? Okay, now we should move on, and I'll give you a very short summary of everything we spoke about, and then I'm going to go into teaching English mode. And that's going to be like vocabulary, phrases, idioms. All right? Let's go. Long story short, there was a woman who was pregnant and had some cravings. She wanted to make a new type of chocolate, but she lacked the skills. She got help from a Filipino pastry chef. Together, they created the company Fix Chocolatier Dessert. However, it wasn't too long before they parted ways. To part ways. Chef Noel and Sarah Hamuda parted ways. Sarah Hamuda kept the company, Chef Noel didn't, and then Sarah Hamuda's husband joined the company. So originally, the company was started by Chef Noel and Sarah Hamuda. However, today, it's owned by Sarah Hamuda and her husband, Mr. Alani, his name is. However, it's not bad because Chef Noel kept working with them. And in 2023, they finally got the perfect recipe. And in 2023, they were selling the bar, but they weren't selling it very well. They were only selling like 1 bar a week. So all this work that they do, and they were unable to actually sell the chocolate bar. Insane stuff. Until one video on TikTok changed everything. One simple video is all it took, and suddenly that chocolate bar is everywhere. Suddenly that chocolate bar is selling like hotcakes. They go from 1 order a week to 30,000 orders overnight. That shit is wild. That shit is crazy. The app that they were using, Deliveroo, which if you live in Canada might be similar to Skip the Dishes or something. One of those apps, like Uber Eats is another one of those apps. But that app that they were using crashed. That's how popular it was after the TikTok video. They sold out. And then like since then, they have gone on to be like a very prestigious type of chocolate. I have looked on their website and I have looked at so much information about it. It was very interesting. They're really catering towards high-end people. You can spend thousands of dollars on their websites on chocolate bars. And they will ship worldwide. So it really is like a status thing now as well. Can you imagine you go to like a business meeting in some big city and they pull out the original Dubai chocolate? That's a status symbol. That's a message right there. Yeah, you could buy your Lindt version. You could buy the Saskatchewan version, which is hilarious, but you could buy that version, or you could buy the OG, the original Dubai chocolate. Pretty impressive if you pull that one out in a meeting, if you're trying to impress people. I found it a very interesting story overall. It has led me to learn a lot more about Dubai chocolate. I'm very interested in Chef Noel, and it led me down a rabbit hole of looking into the chocolate industry as a whole. Like where are these beans coming from? And that is a story for another podcast because I found it so intriguing. I had to pull myself back because I was just researching more and more and more, and I needed to focus on Dubai chocolate for this episode. In a moment, I'm going to go into English teaching mode and talk about it, but I just want to talk about the copycat and knockoffs for a very quick second. And about Vanessa Liang, or Foodie Farm Babe on social media, she's the one who made her Taste of Dubai bar, and she's the one who sold it for $100. And I love the message on her website that says, quote, "Sorry Dubai, the best Dubai chocolate is made in Saskatchewan," end quote. Now for those of you who are not listening, that is or those of you who are not from Canada, those of you who are not from Canada, that is hilarious. That is one of the funniest things I've ever read. Saskatchewan is a very rural area. It is in the middle of Canada. There is not a lot going on. It is flat as a pancake. It is known for farming and nothing else. Anyone who was born and raised in Saskatchewan moves away. I'm sorry if you're from Saskatchewan or you moved to Saskatchewan and you're listening to this, but what are you doing if you live there? There is nothing to do there from what I hear. I've never been. Maybe there's something good there, but I just found it absolutely hilarious how this woman in Saskatchewan, of all places in Canada, not Toronto, not Vancouver, not Calgary or Edmonton, not none of these big cities, but in the most rural back arse of middle of nowhere place in Canada, she made a chocolate bar and was selling it for over $100. That shit is wild. Absolutely wild. Anyways, now it is time to look into the English language of this episode. And from here on out, I'm going into English teacher mode. We're going to look at some phrases, some words that came up, some expressions that came up, and I'm going to directly teach you English from this point on. Are you ready to learn? Alright, the first phrase I want to look at is to take the world by storm. In the podcast I said Dubai chocolate has taken the world by storm. When something takes the world by storm, it becomes incredibly popular very quickly. In this case, Dubai chocolate has taken the world by storm. I mean, we could be more specific and say Dubai chocolate has taken the chocolate world by storm, but in general, we'll just say taken the world by storm. You know, I was walking around the supermarket in December and I saw this green chocolate bar on the stand in the supermarket and I saw the price, $25, and I was blown away. I was shocked. In my head, I was thinking, who on earth is going to pay $25 for a bar of chocolate? And I read the package and I saw Dubai chocolate. And then I thought, oh, pretentious people are going to buy that. For example, I thought that it was just going to be a gimmick. I thought that because they have the word Dubai, it is incredibly expensive. And I didn't know anything about it at the time. But then I started to look into it and I started to see how popular Dubai chocolate is. And how many knockoff brands there are. And it really has taken the world by storm. It's everywhere. Every supermarket has it. A lot of influencers are peddling it online. You know, we use this phrase for the sports world, the chocolate world, the rock climbing world, the art world, the fashion world. There's many different worlds where we could use a phrase like this. I live in Canada. And recently, Mark Carney has taken Canadian politics by storm. He went from not being known to suddenly being known by everyone, and he's now the Prime Minister of Canada. It wasn't expected. He came out of nowhere. He surged in popularity, and he took Canadian politics by storm. I know I'm late to the party, but The Sopranos, that TV show, that took the TV world by storm. It was so popular. It is still popular today. Game of Thrones took the world by storm. But then it fell flat in the last season and was absolutely horrendous. In Canada, there's a TV show called Heated Rivalry. And Heated Rivalry has taken TV by storm, at least in Canada. It's a hockey TV show. But it's not really about hockey, it's about hockey players who fuck each other, basically, and has some very saucy moments between two hockey players. But that TV show has taken Canada by storm. So many people watch it, so many people talk about it, they spoke about it on the radio, it's already going to get another season, so it has taken Canada by storm. Can you think of anything that took your country by storm? Something that became incredibly popular very, very quickly. There's many examples out there. Alright, moving on. Let's talk about splurge. To splurge. Now, splurge is a verb in this case here. And this podcast has been about Dubai chocolate. And how some people splurge on chocolate. Personally speaking, I am not the kind of person to splurge on this type of chocolate bar. I am not going to spend $25. I am certainly not going to spend $100 on a bar of chocolate. I will not judge you. Okay, I will probably judge you a little bit if you do splurge on a chocolate bar like this. But there are some things that I will splurge on. For example, recently enough, I bought a new axe. Let me show you. This is my axe. I splurged on my axe. If you're just listening to the podcast right now, I am holding a beautiful Fiskars axe. It is 28 inches. It is designed for splitting rounds of wood. It has a solid steel axe head and it is beautiful. It's sharp. It is ready to work. It is my pride and joy. I bought this axe for $100. I splurged. I could have bought a cheaper axe. There's many other axes out there, but I wanted this axe. Fiskars is a top quality axe brand. They have a lifetime guarantee. This axe is perfect for me. This axe is solid. It handles so well. The weight distribution is perfect for this axe. I splurged on this axe. And you know, if you follow my Instagram or YouTube, you'll often see me up in the bush in Canada, and one of my favourite pastimes is splitting wood. So my name is Ronan, and I recently splurged on an axe. I will not splurge for a chocolate bar, but I'll absolutely splurge on an axe. And they're handmade. Actually, they're not handmade. I don't know if they're handmade, but they are made in Finland. So I'm hoping it's going to last a lifetime. This week it was my wife's birthday and we decided to splurge. We went to a fancy restaurant. We don't usually eat out, don't usually go to restaurants, don't usually spend a lot of money on food outside of our house. But because it was her birthday, we decided to splurge. And we went to a beautiful restaurant in Kelowna. We ordered duck. She got a cocktail. I got a drink. We dressed up nicely. It was beautiful. It was a fantastic date night. She had a fantastic birthday. We splurged. So to splurge means to spend a lot of money. Was splurging in a restaurant worth it? Yes. Was splurging on my axe worth it? Absolutely, I love my axe. Is splurging for a chocolate bar worth it? Personally, I don't think so. I mean, that woman in Saskatchewan sold out her chocolate bar and it cost $100 a pop. That's insane. That's crazy. But look, if people want to spend that money, they can. It's their money. So when is the last time you splurged on something? What is something that you would consider splurging on? Would you splurge on Dubai chocolate? Would you buy the $100 bar? Or would you even spend $30 on the bar? Because that is to splurge. Okay. We spoke about to bring up or brought up, and Sarah Hamuda and her husband, Yezin Alani, were brought up in the UK but moved to Dubai in 2011. My name is Ronan and I was brought up in Ireland. Chef Noel was brought up in the Philippines. I was brought up in. Where were you brought up? Were you brought up in Canada? Were you brought up in Mexico? Were you brought up in Europe? Were you brought up in Asia? Where were you brought up? If you are an immigrant, did you move country so you can bring up your children in a better environment? I know lots of people that have done that. I know lots of people that have fled countries because they want to bring up their children in safety. They want to bring up their children in a place where they have many opportunities. We often use this in the passive tense. I was brought up. So I was brought up in Ireland by my parents. My parents brought me up in Ireland. You could say that, but it's a little strange. So for you, use this in the passive. I was brought up in. And that means your parents raised you. Your parents helped you grow up in a particular place. Were you brought up in poverty? Were you brought up in wealth? Can you think of someone you know, or someone famous, who was brought up in absolute poverty, but got out of it? I was very lucky. I was brought up in a very loving home. In a home where people cared for me. In a home where the fridge was always full and the house was always warm. I was brought up in ideal circumstances, and I know I'm very, very lucky for that. And not everyone is brought up in ideal circumstances. So for you, where were you brought up? Who were you brought up by? Were you brought up in good circumstances or bad circumstances? If you have children, do you want them to be brought up in good or bad circumstances? I hope good. It's an interesting one, to be brought up. Alright, moving on. Cravings. Oh yeah. In 2021, when Sarah Humuda was working from home and pregnant, she got cravings. Cravings for a particular flavor. Cravings for knafe. I found this part very interesting. Cravings. And of course I had to do a little bit of research into cravings, because once I start pulling on a thread, once I start looking into something, I get really engaged. I get really fixated on it. And I decided to learn a whole lot about cravings. I'm probably going to do a whole podcast episode only about cravings. In terms of this podcast and Dubai chocolate, Sarah got the idea and desire to create Dubai chocolate when she had pregnancy cravings, right? Pregnancy cravings. And they are a real and legitimate thing, my friends. According to the internet, food cravings can happen anytime during pregnancy. Cravings that coincide with food aversions are likely to start in the first trimester when your hormone levels ramp up. Notes Lou. And while you may want French fries up until the day you deliver, generally speaking, pregnancy cravings tend to peak during the second trimester before dropping off in the third. If you have ever been pregnant, what did you crave when you had pregnancy cravings? If you've had a pregnant partner, what did they crave when they were pregnant? Cravings do not just happen when a person is pregnant. They extend far beyond pregnancy. Have you ever had a nicotine craving? Any smokers listening? Any former smokers listening? Because if you are, I bet in your life you've had at least one or two nicotine cravings. You know, a moment where you're thinking, I really, really want some nicotine? That's a craving. And for anyone who's ever quit smoking, those cravings are strong. Have you ever had a craving, not nicotine related, but for like a particular food or a particular drink or a particular drug? Have you ever quit coffee and had a caffeine craving? You know when your body really, really wants caffeine? That can be called a craving. Cravings are driven by our brain's reward pathways. Neurotransmitters, memory, and environmental cues all combine to create a craving. Understanding the neuroscience behind cravings really helps us to understand why our urges feel intense and persistent. Imagine feeling an intense desire. One desire, one feeling that overcomes everything and all of your thoughts completely. That is a craving. It's more than just a strong want. It is a drive that can influence and change your behavior. Cravings play a pivotal role in our lives, especially when it comes to food, activities, or substances. Cravings can differ based on context, but they often reflect a strong desire connected to your brain's reward system. It's that dopamine. You're craving dopamine. And even when you're craving dopamine, it will fire on anticipation. So if you are a smoker or a coffee drinker and you don't have it for a very long time, that moment before you get your coffee, that moment before you take a drag of a cigarette, that is when a whole bunch of dopamine is going to be released. And that's when you can satisfy your craving, because dopamine fires in anticipation. It's the wanting. It's not even the consumption of this thing that we crave, but it's the wanting that can really fire all the receptors in our brain, all the dopamine receptors. Oh, it's crazy just thinking about it. But I can absolutely think about times, like I was in China last year, and I love my coffee. I absolutely adore coffee, guys. I think coffee is one of the greatest drugs in the world. Caffeine is one of the greatest drugs in the world. But in China, the coffee culture is very different. In China, there is sugar in so many drinks, and it's so hard to just get a black, bitter coffee. You know, I don't take sugar, I don't take milk, I take my coffee black and strong. And I remember craving a good coffee in China. And I was in rural China. I was hiking through the mountains of China, and there was nowhere, absolutely nowhere to get a good coffee. It just didn't exist. I was hiking up this huge mountain, and there was a village on top of the mountain, and there was no real coffee available. They had instant coffee with sugar already in it. And that was it. That was the only type of coffee I could get. And of course I drank it because I really wanted caffeine. I really wanted a hot drink. But it wasn't what I was craving. It was nowhere near what I really wanted, which was a black, bitter coffee. That's all I wanted. And I remember I arrived back to Chengdu. Chengdu is a big city. And the first thing I did when I got to Chengdu, I found a coffee shop, like a Western style coffee shop. And I got myself an Americano, and it was amazing. It was one of the greatest coffees I've ever had in my life. I was craving that coffee for so long. I needed that coffee for so long. And finally, I got it. And I can remember the excitement of ordering the coffee and watching it being poured and getting the coffee in my hand and just smelling the coffee and how good it smelt. And taking a drink and enjoying that coffee. And then I could relax. I was able to breathe again. I was able to just slow down. Because I had got my craving. Yeah, I think I'm addicted to caffeine. I've quit smoking on more than one occasion, But I remember the nicotine cravings. Oh, they're powerful cravings. They are very, very powerful cravings. And here's the thing about nicotine. It will change your mood completely. You could go from being a jolly happy person, but then you can turn into an absolute cunt when you do not get your nicotine. You turn into a very irritable person, a person who gets irritated easily. When you do not have your nicotine, when you're craving nicotine. And yes, the craving will pass. But it's kind of hard to see that. It's kind of hard to experience that in the moment. So a long story short, a craving is a very strong desire to indulge in something. And Sarah Hamuda had pregnancy cravings for knafe and chocolate. So she combined them and she wanted to create this new type of dessert. So due to her pregnancy cravings, she wanted to make a new type of dessert. What cravings do you have? Like I said at the start of this part, have you ever had pregnancy cravings? Or have you got a partner who had pregnancy cravings? Okay, let's move on from cravings and look at the phrase to lack the skills. In the podcast I said, so, what do you do when you have an idea you want to bring to life but you lack the skills? You get help. Sarah lacked the skills. She had the idea. She really wanted to make a new dessert, but she did not have the ability. She lacked the ability to do it. She lacked the skills. When you lack something, you do not have enough of it. So, Sarah was smart. Sarah got help from a person who did not lack the skills. She got help from an expert. She got help from Chef Noel. Because Chef Noel had the skills. He did not lack the skills. He had all the skills needed for this. Maybe Chef Noel lacked the ability to promote himself. But Sarah didn't, and together they made a pretty damn good team. In general, there's many things you can lack in life. You can lack skills, ambition, confidence, belief. And those are all like internal. But you could also lack money. You can lack energy. There's so many things that you can lack in life. If you're an English speaker or an English learner, are you lacking the confidence to speak English on the street? Are you lacking the confidence to push your English to the next level? I get it. I can see why you would. It could be quite intimidating, but please don't. If you're ever in my classroom, I hope you never lack the confidence to speak. You could lack the energy to complete something. Like a hike. In my opinion, there's nothing worse than being on a hike when you lack the energy to complete the hike. That is terrifying. That is easily one of the worst experiences a person can have. When you're not near your camp or not near the finish of the hike and you're lacking the energy to continue, what do? You can't just stay on the side of a mountain, you have to get home. That's when you have to dig deep and get the energy and continue. Do you lack drive? Do you lack motivation? Do you know the difference between drive and motivation? Very quickly, drive is the feeling you want to be successful. It's constant. It's always there. Motivation can come and go. Sometimes you're motivated, sometimes you're not motivated. That's okay. Sometimes you can lack motivation, but you might not lack drive. Drive is that overarching feeling that you want something to be successful. Motivation is the ability to actually work on it at a particular time. If you lack drive, maybe you're not doing something you're actually passionate about. If you lack motivation, well, figure out why. Because there's many ways to motivate yourself, but drive is different. So in this case here, Sarah Hamuda lacked the skills to make the chocolate bar. So she teamed up with Chef Noel because he does not lack the skills. He has all the skills necessary to create this amazing chocolate bar. I thought that was a very interesting part of the story. Alright, the next one we're looking at is talking about how the bar finally sold. And there's a few phrases here. So I'll just read a little part from the podcast. This led to a waterfall of orders. Mr. Alani said at least 30,000 orders came pouring in. They were getting so many orders that the delivery app they were using crashed. Sarah said, I remember throwing my phone into the street. There was a wave of orders, a flood of orders they could not keep up. Overnight, they went from 1 order per week to 30,000 orders, all because of one simple 30-second TikTok video. That was interesting. That was super interesting. And that is... it just blows my mind. Every time I hear that, every time I think about it, it blows my mind. How they were selling just 1 bar of chocolate every week. 1 single bar. With all this work they would put in to making a chocolate bar, and just 1 per week. But they never gave up. They never quit because they knew it would be successful. And overnight, the bar started selling. Overnight, the bar finally sold. So it led to a waterfall of orders. That is a beautiful image. Picture a waterfall. And imagine all that was dollar bills coming down. That's what basically happened to Hamuda. One day you have nothing, the next day you have a flood of orders. You have a wave of orders. Orders came pouring in, and all of those expressions, all of those figurative ways of talking are connected to water or liquid. A waterfall of orders, because water will fall down. Orders came pouring in, to pour in, P-O-U-R. There was a wave of orders. Waves are those things in the ocean that you see that are big, that people surf on. And if there's a wave of orders, it just covers you completely. A flood of orders. A flood is when the water levels rise and rise and rise and consume everything. And for Hamuda, for her chocolate bar, can't get enough of it. It was insane. One day, they're selling... Or 1 week, it's just 1 chocolate bar every week. Overnight, 30,000 orders come pouring in. They went from absolutely nothing to being overwhelmed. They couldn't actually keep up with the orders. They couldn't keep up with it. They were unable to make as many chocolate bars as they needed because the orders were so popular, and they kept coming in, kept coming in, kept coming in. It is like a dream for a company to have that. An absolute dream where suddenly this happens. Some people might say it was an overnight success, but it wasn't. It took years of hard work to actually make this happen. Sarah finally nailed it. She finally got the perfect chocolate bar, but she couldn't sell it. So they sent their chocolate bar to influencers. And 1 video is all it took. 1 video from the right person at the right time. And there was a waterfall of orders. I love it. I think it's great. And that language is commonly associated with demand. A waterfall of orders. Orders came pouring in. A wave of orders. A flood of orders. If you have a product that you're selling, you want all of those. You want a waterfall of orders for your particular product. You want a wave of orders to come in. A wave of orders. It is beautiful, idiomatic language right there. It's just like a surge in popularity. I think it's great. I think it's insane. I think it's batshit crazy how one TikTok video changed everything for this couple. Changed everything for this company. Changed everything about chocolate. One 30-second video. It blows my mind every single time. Wow. Okay. The next one is a bit of a strange phrase, but I think I need to talk about it. So basically, kanafe is to Arabs what cheesecake is to the West. It's a very popular dessert. We're using this phrase to compare a similarity between two things, to help a person understand a similarity. X is to 1 what Y is to 2, will be my way of describing it. Let me try to think of some more examples. In Canada, hockey is the number one sport. People love hockey. People go crazy for hockey. In my country, hockey is not popular. What is popular? Rugby is popular. Soccer is popular. But what's even more popular than those would be Gaelic football or hurling. They would be the number one sports. So, hockey is to Canadians what Gaelic football is to Irish people. It is the most popular sport in the world. Hockey is to Canadians what soccer is to Brazilians. Are you Brazilian? Is soccer popular where you live? I think if you're Brazilian, soccer is popular. Like every Brazilian I know, even the Brazilians who do not like sport, will watch soccer just because it is like their thing. You get me? I mean, soccer is quite popular all over the world, so maybe everyone could say that. Hockey is to Canadians what soccer is to the Spanish, what soccer is to the Argentinians, what soccer is to whoever. And in this podcast, I'm talking about kanafe, and kanafe is super popular to the Arabs. Now, I live in Canada, and it's not popular here at all. I've never even heard of it until I started making this podcast. So, kanafe is to Arabs what cheesecake is to the West. Like, what dessert is super popular in the West? It is cheesecake. Every restaurant has cheesecake slices. So many places offer cheesecake. Where you live, what is a popular dessert? Like, if you're Chinese, if you're Japanese, what is a super popular... Mochi, I think, is a very popular Japanese dessert. It's like an ice cream. So I could say, basically, kanafe is to Arabs what mochi is to the Japanese. It's a super popular dessert. In Ireland, cheesecake is popular, but like a 99 ice cream is also super popular. I love a 99. It's like a soft serve ice cream. So kanafe is to Arabs what a 99 is to the Irish. A very popular dessert. A very popular treat, for example. Christmas is to Canadians what Ramadan is to Muslims, or what Eid is to Muslims. A bunch of my students recently finished Ramadan and they were celebrating Eid, and we spoke a lot about it, and it's just like Christmas for them. It's such a big celebration. It's huge. They have gifts, they have nice food, they celebrate with their family. So Christmas is to me what Eid is to them. And they're different, but the feeling is the same. The feeling of joy that I get at Christmas is the same feeling of joy that they'll get during Eid. So can you think about an example for you? Like maybe you're not living in the country where you're born and raised. If Barbara in Dublin is listening, you're originally from Argentina. Alright, try make a sentence. In Ireland, something is to the Irish what something is to the Argentinians. Try to make a comparison of some sort or another. Think about alcohol, think about drinks. What drinks are super popular in your country compared to another country? Guinness is to the Irish what Moosehead is to the Canadians. Guinness is a very popular drink here, in Ireland. Moosehead is a very popular drink there. So, Guinness is to the Irish what Moosehead is to the Canadians. It's a national drink. I can't really think of any other examples for that. But, listen back and try to make some of your own. Alright, the next phrase we're looking at is nail it. In the podcast I said, they continued to modify the recipe until sometime in 2023 when Sarah claimed they finally nailed it. They nailed the recipe. They perfected the chocolate bar. To nail something just means that you do it perfectly. To nail something means that you have done it above and beyond, that you have got 100%. When is the last time you nailed an exam? Did you nail your driving test the first time round, or did you need to do it again? For me, I did not nail my driving test the first time round. I have done a grand total of 4 driving tests in my life. It's embarrassing to say. I have done 1 driving test in Canada, and I nailed the driving test in Canada, but I did not nail the driving test in Ireland. To be fair, the instructor was very mean and nasty, and he actually has a reputation for being that mean and nasty, and I will gladly make up excuses as to why I did not nail my driving test the first time round, or the second time round, but I nailed it on the third time. And in this podcast, we spoke about Sarah and how she continued to modify the recipe until 2023 when she finally nailed the recipe. When she finally perfected. When she finally got the recipe to be perfect. So to nail something is to make something perfectly. I love baking bread. I hate when I don't nail it. I hate when I bake bread and it's not perfect. That's what happens though. That's life. But this morning, I baked some bread and I nailed it. The bread turned out amazing. It was delicious. It was so good. I make a killer bread. It's a soda bread. It is so tasty. The problem is I keep eating bread and I started to put on weight again, so I need to stop baking such nice bread. It's a curse when you nail bread, when you make something delicious. So my name is Ronan, and I nailed it this morning when I made bread. My name is Ronan, and I nailed my Canadian driving test. My name is Ronan, and I did not nail my first Irish driving test. I did not nail my second Irish driving test, but I did nail my third Irish driving test. Yeah, is that something to be proud of? I don't know. All I know is I got a license to drive in Ireland. To nail something, to do something perfectly. Another one I want to talk about is copycats and knockoffs. Copycats and knockoffs. In the podcast I said, of course, with all the successes, there have been copycats and knockoffs created. This part really intrigued me, and this was such an interesting rabbit hole to go down. Looking at all the knockoffs of Dubai chocolate. And so you have Fix chocolate dessert, and they made the original Dubai chocolate. They can't get enough of it. A really cool product. It got a waterfall of orders after a TikTok video. And of course, with all that success, more people wanted the same. More people started to do that. More people wanted to make knockoffs. A knockoff is a copy of one product. Did you ever go to a market, and in the market you see Gucci bags, or you see Levi jeans, or you see Wrangler jeans, or you see Sony products, or you see something, but it's not the real one, that's a knockoff. It's a fake version of something else. Now, knockoffs can sometimes use the exact same name, or they might change the name a little bit. Like I said, I was in China last year, and I went to a huge mall in China. The malls are ginormous in China. And in the mall, there was a whole bunch of knockoff products. They didn't have Gucci, they had Uchi. They didn't have Columbia, they had Lubia. Weird name. They didn't have Adidas, they had Diadas. They had their own versions of all these popular brands. And it was super interesting because I got some great knockoff clothes in China. And generally speaking, the quality is just as good as the real thing. Like, I'm not going to go and drop $100 or $200 or $300 on a belt. But if I see a knockoff belt of something, I'm going to buy it. Commonly, watches sell well when they're knockoffs. When I was a kid, I was in New York in the year 2000. So before social media or anything. And it was all a new world for me. And I remember walking through the park and this guy comes up with a long trench coat. And just like in the cartoons or the movies, he opened his trench coat and there was a bunch of knockoff watches for sale. Rolexes, whatever you wanted, you could buy. They're not real, they're fake. But they look real, they're knockoffs. They're copycats of the real product. Now in this example here, in this podcast, it's a little different. Because we have knockoffs of Dubai chocolate that are an incredibly high standard and an incredibly high quality. I spoke about Vanessa Liang of Foodie Farm Babe on social media, and she created the Taste of Dubai bar and sold it for 100 Canadian dollars, and it sold out in minutes. Minutes! She sold out. She didn't create Dubai chocolate. She didn't create this. She didn't go through the process of years and years and years of work. But she created a version of it. She created a knockoff of Dubai chocolate. And she made a bunch of money selling it. Very, very smart. I checked her website. She's not selling it right now, but I guarantee you, whenever she does, she's going to sell out. Because her knockoffs of the real product are obviously very, very good. Lindt have created a knockoff. Lindt are copycats. And in fact, in Kelowna, where I live, it's the Lindt chocolate bar that I saw that got me interested in Dubai chocolate. I didn't buy it because of how expensive it was. But I was like, oh, Lindt have a new chocolate bar. What's that? And I saw the word Dubai on it, and I just thought this is a gimmick. They're just putting the name Dubai on it to sell it, because Dubai is trendy, because Dubai is hot, because Dubai is the place to be, they say. At least it was before everything went to shit, but you get me. And so, Mrs. Hamuda and Mr. Alani are pissed off about the knockoffs. Because they're business people, because they're more focused on the innovation, they're more focused on the selling of the product. But the chef, the genius behind it, the man in the kitchen, is not pissed off, and he's actually embracing it. And this is why I love Chef Noel. I'm absolutely fascinated by this individual. I have actually done so much research on Chef Noel that, would you believe, I'm going to do another podcast about Chef Noel, because he is just that type of interesting person. And so, for him, it's a badge of honor. For him, it's an honor when someone is trying to copy your product. I thought that was beautiful. And he's not pissed off. He even said, when people copy you, that means you've triggered a lot of their emotions or creativity. Isn't that gorgeous? For me, the biggest form of flattery is when you copy someone's work, and I have no problem with that, because it means you've done something over and beyond what is expected. I really admire this chef for that approach to the knockoffs. And yeah, Hamuda and her husband are pissed off. That's okay. Of course they are. They're probably more focused on the marketing, the money. Mr. Alani said it might undercut his product and make people think their product is something different. But the knockoffs are selling, which to be honest can really only help them. You know, I was actually on their website. I was on the website for Fix Chocolatier Dessert, just to look at everything. And on every single page of their website, they have a big banner saying, do not buy the fake version. Buy the authentic, buy the original, buy the best. They're really leaning into the fact that there's copycats out there. They're leaning into the fact that there's all these knockoff versions of their chocolate bar out there. And on their website, they make sure you know that they're the OGs, that they're the originals, that they're the ones that have started all this. And you should not buy a knockoff. You should buy an original. Don't go to the copycats. Buy the original. I mean, I would buy the original, but it's too expensive. Heck, even the knockoffs are too expensive. It was very interesting to read how in Germany there's all these legal actions happening and legal court cases happening because of the knockoffs, and how there's an actual importer of the original Dubai chocolate bar and he's trying to get these other places to stop selling Dubai chocolate. That's why some places in Canada have Dubai style chocolate. I was even in a mall here, and I went to a place called Purdy's Chocolate, and they have really good chocolate. It's rare that you can find good chocolate in Canada, not gonna lie. Purdy's would be up there in my opinion with one of the best chocolates you can buy. And they have a Dubai style chocolate now for sale. So it's kind of like everyone is doing it. Hamuda was the first. Chef Noel was the first. But since then, everyone is creating their own version, or everyone is creating knockoffs. Have you ever bought a knockoff product? Have you ever bought a knockoff product that was actually good? Sometimes you buy a knockoff product and the quality is not the same. The quality kind of goes down very, very quickly. When my dad was in China years ago, he bought me a knockoff low alpine jacket, and it was good. It was a down jacket. It was great. It cost him $20. And he gave it to me. A low alpine jacket, for those of you who don't know, they're expensive. That's a high-end brand, low alpine. But I got a knockoff. And it was amazing. It kept me warm. It was beautiful. Now, the stitching wasn't so great. And yeah, it only lasted like a year or 2 years. But for $20, that was okay. I was happy with that. $20 for 2 years of a low alpine jacket, I could stomach that. If you want to buy a brand new low alpine jacket, cha-ching, that's going to cost you a lot of money. Because they are crazy expensive. So I'm all for knockoffs. But I'm not going to buy a knockoff chocolate bar for $30. I think if I was, I'd actually just splurge and buy the real thing, I think. But I'm not that kind of person. I'm not buying knockoffs. I'll spend my money on real things. Like my Fisker's axe that I love. Isn't it beautiful? If you're just listening, I'm holding my axe again because I love it. It's gorgeous. And the last phrase I really want to focus on is different ways you can say you're going to quit something. In this podcast, I said, they were ready to throw in the towel. They were ready to quit. They were ready to call it quits. 3 different ways to call something, to quit something, to say you're going to finish something. So they were ready to throw in the towel. To throw in the towel means you give up, you quit, you admit that you cannot succeed. They're only selling 1 bar of chocolate every single week. They were probably very unmotivated. So they were ready to throw in the towel. They were ready to stop. If you're out of energy, you might throw in the towel. When you throw in the towel, it will suggest that you have no more energy to give. I threw in the towel, I stopped doing it. I needed a break, I gave up. Generally speaking, if you say let's throw in the towel, it means you're going to quit permanently. It's not that you're taking a pause. It's that you're done. They were ready to call it quits. That's an interesting expression. If you're going to call it quits, that just means that you are quitting, that you're stopping. Very similar to throwing the towel. They were ready to call it quits. What is the it? The it is the project. The it is the chocolate bar. Now it's a weird one because we say quits, call it quits. But we don't actually call it quits. Like, hey, there's quits. It's quits. We just use the full expression. I'm ready to call it quits. Are you ready to call it quits? I don't think you're going to succeed. I was working on a project for 5 years before I called it quits. And sometimes it's okay to call it quits. Sometimes it's okay to throw in the towel. Sometimes you admit that, look, this is just beyond me. I can't do it. I'm calling it quits now. I'm done. I'm ready to call it quits. Sometimes a person might not be ready to call it quits. And it takes a lot for them to admit they need to call it quits. And so, in this case here, many other people would have called it quits. But they didn't. They kept going. Hamuda was stubborn and she was driven. And she succeeded. Chef Noel has had an incredible career. I wonder how many times he wanted to call it quits. How many times he wanted to do something different. For me, I almost called it quits on the podcast. I almost called it quits on trying to be an independent educator or entrepreneur. And I took a break for a very long time. But I didn't call it quits. I always said I was going to come back, and here I am. And I'm approaching my business with like a different lens or a different viewpoint. I'm not calling it quits. I'm just doing it completely differently to how I did it before, and I'm very happy to do it differently. Because the way I was doing it was unsustainable. I was ready to throw in the towel. I was ready to quit completely. But I decided to dial it back, take a break, and approach it again in like a different way, with different goals and a different method. I was ready to call it quits, but I'm very glad I didn't. And I know so many educators out there, so many great teachers out there that have called it quits. And they have given up on their idea of being an independent teacher, and they've just gone down the route of working for a school or something, and that's okay if that's what you want to do. Or they've gone into completely different fields. Education is a very difficult field, and like I know every field is difficult, I get it. But let's just focus on education because that's my wheelhouse, that's what I know. And I know so many teachers, not even online, not even English teachers, but like regular high school teachers that are calling it quits. Because of the standards and the quality of life that brings you. It's not great. I called it quits teaching high school because I don't want to deal with parents. I much prefer teaching adults. I much prefer teaching people when I don't need to speak to mom and dad. So I called it quits on my high school teaching career. And I teach adults. I love it. It's great. I know so many people who would work in the British Columbian, in Canada, in the British Columbian education system, and they're ready to call it quits because of all the rules, all the admin that you have to do, all the shit you gotta tolerate. How many social workers do you know that have called it quits in the last couple of years? Because social work is draining. It is taxing. It takes all the energy away from you. So many social workers have called it quits. They've said, I can't do this career anymore. I'm looking for something different. And like I said, sometimes it's okay to call it quits. Sometimes, like in my case, you need to take a step back and slow down. I didn't call it quits. I took a break. And I'm back, and I'm really enjoying it now, doing it my way. To call it quits, to throw in the towel, means you're giving up and you're stopping and you're going to do something different. And that, my friends, is that. My name is Ronan. This is Little Seal English. Thank you for listening. This podcast was all about Dubai chocolate. And of course, we've learnt a whole bunch of random English in the process of learning about Dubai chocolate. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it interesting. In the description of this podcast or video, there's a couple of links. You could join my Telegram channel. It's free. I post a lot more in there. You could support me by buying me a coffee. If you're so lucky to have money to do so, that would be very much appreciated. I don't make money off the podcast, but if you could buy me a coffee, that would be great. For now, I am going to drink some coffee. I am going to relax. I have been speaking for quite a while, but I'm looking forward to making another podcast very, very soon. If you have any requests, drop them in the comments. This podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, all of those, and it's also available on YouTube. It will be great to hear from you. Drop a comment on Spotify, drop a comment anywhere, and I will absolutely get back to you. Overall, my name is Ronan. I have a very healthy addiction to teaching English. I hope you learnt something, either about Dubai chocolate, about business, about Chef Noel, or I hope you learnt some new phrases, idioms, whatever it may be. Enjoy the rest of your day, my friends. Bye for now.